It's time to unleash the expert. What is he an expert on? Relationships, sex, spirituality, and rediscovering yourself beyond the trauma. Get ready to unleash more purpose, passion, and pleasure in your life. Here's the expert himself, Mr. Brannon Patrick.
Welcome back to the Brannon Patrick Show. I'm glad you're here. Glad you're listening. And appreciate all of your support. I hope that you get something out of listening to me talk about these topics. These topics come from my years of treating people with all kinds of things, from addiction to depression to anxiety to faith crisis to I could go on, and relationship issues. And these are the topics I try to get to the underneath a little bit, and not just talk about the symptoms, that not just harp on the problems, but actually discuss the things that can shift, the things that can change, and the things that can help in terms of actual recovery and actual healing. So that's what I want to do again today. I want to describe something that I think is so important to actual changing outcomes in your life. So if you want something different in your life, what I talk about in this episode right now is critical. So you might be looking at your life and thinking, well, I keep getting the same thing in terms of how much intimacy I have, how much money I make, how close I am to God, my fulfillment, my career, I just keep getting the same thing. And I wish that I could create something different, but I don't really understand how. I'm gonna tell you how, and give you some answers there. When I was a kid, my parents, kind of really randomly, but they bought this picture, and it was this picture of this creek and this forest, and it was a painting, and it was beautiful. My mom hung it up, and we had it sitting in our living room for years, hung up there. But quickly after they got it, you look closer at the picture, and you can see that the artist had drawn in all of these faces into the roots of the trees, into the trees themselves, into the creek, and you could see all these faces in there. And once I started picking them out, I started counting them, and I could see all of them. And once I could see them all, when I looked at that picture, I no longer saw a forest and trees and the creek first and foremost. In fact, that was kind of secondary to all the faces that I saw. So what I saw was faces. My perspective totally shifted, and I couldn't undo it. I couldn't change it. It just was faces now, where at first it was just the forest. This is how our lives work in so many ways. We experience certain things automatically. We have trauma. We have subtle trauma. We have big T trauma, but we have experiences in our lives that give us a perspective that we live under. And within that perspective, we are designed to do the best we can to survive. So once we have this belief system, this perspective in place, then we work hard for our survival. As we work hard for our survival under these belief systems, we create certain outcomes. Those outcomes come into our life. And then we usually do it again and again and again. And we get a lot of the same results over and over again. So, for example, I was talking with somebody this week who experienced significant amounts of abandonment from dad at a very young age. And how that was taken was, I'm not that important. And now as an adult, feeling as if he's not that important, that's a belief system. That's a paradigm that he lives under. he shows up in his relationships either overcompensating, trying to be important, or hiding because he doesn't want to get rejected because he feels like he's not that important. And as he does that, he gets treated as if he's not that important. Which then he does more things to try to cope with that, and the cycle goes on and on. Your perspective won't change unless something happens. And we'll talk about what that something is here in a second. A lot of times when people struggle with things, they want to figure out the answer. So they go buy some self-help books, they talk to a therapist, and they talk about their issue. And then they go back to their life and they keep creating the same thing again and again. I've talked about Newton's law before, where an object in motion stays in motion until acted on by an outside force. It's the same thing with us and our energy. When we are in this protection mode under the paradigms and the systems that we're under, we stay in motion. We stay creating the same thing again and again and again until acted on by an outside force. Now, sometimes we're acted on by that force out of just sheer external forces come into our lives. Things like a loved one dies. I win the lottery. Whatever, like something big will happen, changes our perspective, changes our paradigm. And that changes our life in some way, for good or bad. But if you're struggling with issues in your life and you want different outcomes, you don't have to go win the lottery. You don't have to have something major randomly happen to you in your life. But what you do need to do is be willing to be vulnerable to the getting knocked, to getting changed. So when we experience trauma and we go into the survival mode, we get so good at protecting against vulnerability. We are good at it. And we protect so much that our energy stays stuck. We just stay in motion, the same thing again and again and again. So it's counter to our instinctual survival to actually say, okay, like I'm gonna unburden these protected parts. I'm gonna let go of the systems that keep me safe, and I'm gonna allow myself to experience something different because I want a different perspective. So it's a catch-22. My favorite quote: "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek." You want something different in your life, you're going to have to be vulnerable and practice courage. Courage is the key to actual shifting so that you can see things differently on a soul level. I remember here's a kind of a dumb example, but I'll give it anyways. I was really shy and I was really unsure of myself early on. Through high school and in my first few years of college. And you can imagine this didn't work very well for me in terms of like getting a date because I was timid, I was awkward, I didn't know how to put myself out there in confidence. And I think deep down I had some trauma of I wasn't good enough. So why would anyone like want to date me? I started to notice this, started to get conscious of it. I'm starting to get aware how unconfident that I was with women. And I got really conscious of that. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to act as if I am good enough. And I'm not going to be afraid to put myself out there. And I'm not going to be afraid to ask for a girl's number if I want to get a girl's number. And the first time I asked for a girl's number was terrifying, was so scary. Thought I was going to die. But I did, and I got her number. It's great. She didn't reject me. She could have, but she didn't. Great. So then I thought, well, okay, I'll try that again. And I did it a few more times, and I kept getting these phone numbers, and I kept getting these dates. And what do you know? My confidence started to show up. I started to realize I am lovable. I am desired. Like, what the heck? I never would have known that had I not put myself out there to ask for their phone numbers. But asking for their phone numbers was the opposite thing that I ever wanted to do, because my protective parts were telling me that I wasn't good enough. So I had to act in spite of those protective parts. I had to unburden them, get conscious that they're there, let them go, and step in the opposite direction of those protective parts. And face the possibility of rejection. Face the possibility that what those parts are protecting me against, it might be true. I got to sit in that, enter that cave, experience something different, and then something changes inside of me. Now my perspective is different. If you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result, then we call that insanity. But that's what we all do so much. This topic for me is coming off of last month, where the first part of the month I went down and helped facilitate a women's retreat where there was about 30 something women there. And these women came down, and at a retreat, we don't sit down with them one-on-one and do talk therapy. We throw them in the arena in many different ways, physically, emotionally, spiritually, so that they can have an experience that will push them to know something differently, to see their life differently, regardless of their trauma, regardless of what they've been believing their whole life. To actually have an experience that is different matters. I'm thinking of a client that was hiding some of his sexual behavior, and just thought, my wife will divorce me, she'll hate me. He went and got honest with her, and she showed up with a ton of love, boundaries, but love. And let him know that, she loves him no matter what. And he's telling me this story, and it's like you could see in his eyes that feeling of, oh my gosh, it's different than I thought it was. What if I would have asked for a girl's number and she would have said no? I think that did happen a few times, by the way. Or what if he would have told his wife about this and she freaked out and disconnected and divorced him? I talked about risk last time. It's that same principle of, if I'm cycling with my energy and creating the same outcomes of suffering again and again and again, and then I go take a risk and it blows up in my face, it's still better than staying stuck in the rut of what I was creating. And what that risk or that courageous act can do is it can push me further into the rut. Like, okay, I got rejected. There's proof that I'm not good enough, that I'm bad, or it can push me further out. Oh, hey, I got rejected and I'm still alive. That wasn't horrible. I survived. I'm loved regardless of whether that person rejects me or not. I'm okay. So you can go either direction with it, but having that experience is at least shifting something out of the same rut, the same belief system over and over and over again. So back to, I call it experiential work, having an experience. If you've had experiences, traumatic experiences in your life about love and God and parents and all this stuff, attachment, you have traumatic experience around attachment, then you can talk to yourself till you're blue in the face about how horrible people are for rejecting you and they're not safe and this and that and all these things. But what you really need is to have an experience that's different, because then you'll know something different. And when I say know, not in your mind, in your soul, you'll know something different. But you're going to have to go put yourself out on the platter a little bit in order to have those type of experiences. Another thing that happened in April is we went down to Peru, and I went down with courageous people that are incredible people that want to heal, open, humble, willing, wanting different outcomes in their life. And as far as plant medicine journey, plant medicine can kick your ass like hard. And what it does, it's interesting because, you know, they throw psychedelics in there with like drugs, like cocaine and meth or alcohol or whatever, which is interesting. And this is why it's interesting to me. The reason why psychedelics aren't as addicting as those things is because those things are really good at numbing you out and taking you out of life. Psychedelics, in many ways, they stop you in your tracks. They help remove those protective parts. They get your ego out of the way. And then you're left to feel whatever's gonna come. I saw people just laying flat out on the ground, with emotion, with pain, with sadness for hours, and some with euphoria, with love, with excitement, both the full range of emotion and experience, and it's an experience on a deep level that what I thought was true about love and attachment and God and life is actually very different. And with my protective parts out of the way, then I'm able to see it, feel it, and know it. But it takes some courage to put yourself in that position. And even when you're in the medicine journey, sometimes people can still resist. Their protective parts can still hang in there and battle and fight and not allow full surrender to having that experience. The answer is not going and just like chaotically putting yourself in harm's way. That's not what I'm saying. But if you want different outcomes in your life, then what you need to be open to is letting go of those protective parts so that you can experience something different, which requires courage and requires faith and requires vulnerability. And then you'll be given something. And this is the beauty of it. You'll be given some knowing, some wisdom, some growth, some deeper understanding of self and the world around you, if you allow yourself to go through those experiences. So you can look at your life today and you can see, okay, where am I really protecting? And why am I really protecting there? Is it about relationships? Is it about God? Is it about intimacy? What belief systems and protective parts are around there and why? Get conscious of that. What can I do now to act opposite to the fear and step into my power and have a different experience? We are all powerful. We all can heal. The lies that we believe from our trauma are just that, lies. The lies about not being enough, about not being lovable, not being important. All those things are lies, but you won't know it until you allow yourself to experience something different. So that's why I do retreats. That's why I encourage things like plant medicine journeys, experiential activities, deep conscious learning about self and understanding of self, trauma, systems of belief, faulty core beliefs, ways of protection, masks that you wear, all of those things, getting so aware of those things so that then you can step in and know something different. That's what healing is. And once you do this bottom up work, not top down, bottom up work, that's where all the outcomes in your life start to shift. If you want any information about this, I can talk about this all day. I can get you resources. My groups that I do, this is what we do. We go through a full process of this. And I can definitely hook you up with some things about this. So you can message me at brannon@therapyutah.org or find me on Instagram at Brannon_Patrick. And I'll see you guys. Have a good one.